Welcome to Surrender School.
So welcome, everybody. I'll start with the mission statement of Surrender School. At Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions with those who want a healthy relationship with food. We are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do try to adhere to the spirit of the traditions. Most all of us, or actually all of us, are from or have a 12-step history. We love the 12 steps and we love the big book. So you'll hear us talking about that quite a bit as we go through all the things that we're working on. All right. So everything that we offer at Surrender School is on the website, and we really want to drive you to the website. If you spend time there, you'll see all kinds of things that we've been doing over the past few years, and there's all kinds of stuff out there. So go and check it out. Feel free to just kind of wander around and take a look. Watch the chat today for details, because very often Lori will post some things that are out there so that you know about them. So she does post things. And one thing to keep in mind is we now have a second Zoom room. So each of the different things that are out on the website, at the bottom it says, instructions to go to Zoom. If you click on that, it'll take you to the right link to go to the correct room. So or you may just want to keep track of what the room numbers are, but at any rate, at the bottom of each of those is the correct Zoom room to go to the correct Zoom room. Most of the things that I'm doing are staying in the first Zoom room, and most of the things that are new are going to the second Zoom room. So if you end up spending a lot of time in a room waiting and nothing happens, more than likely it's in the other room. Just something to keep in mind. If Surrender School has helped your recovery, please consider donating. We do have expenses. None of us that do any of the volunteer work, it's all volunteer work. We don't get paid for it. But we do have expenses like the website and Zoom, and we're having a retreat in 2026. And of course, there'll be expenses with that. So if Surrender School has helped you, it's really cool because most of the people that come to Surrender School are from 12-step, and the 12-step people are accustomed to paying their own way, right? It's part of our recovery is that. So people do donate, which is just awesome, and we really thank you for that. It's very, very helpful. All right, here's some new things that we have going on. In May, Linda T. did a abstinence and recovery workshop that she was basically 31 days. And people came to it for all 31 days, and their recovery was, it was an amazing thing. I hear. I wasn't able to go, but I'm hearing great things about it. So what Scarlett H has volunteered is every Monday from 5:30 to 6:30, one of those sessions that Linda covered she's covering one of those sessions. And so it's the video of the session followed by some writing, followed by some sharing. And so it's basically 31 weeks long, and it just started. So I think it's on week 2 or 3 now. So, but it's on Mondays from 5:30 to 6:30 Pacific time. Also, there is a new reading room, reading again the emotional sobriety book by somebody is not muted. Thank you. So the emotional sobriety book by Alan Berger, Kim and Dave are doing. It sounds like Sam and Dave from the old 60s. Anyway, so Kim and Dave are doing the emotional sobriety book in a reading room. And a reading room, by the way, means that we read it together. We literally read it together. And that just started also. So, and that is mornings, August 1st. It began August 1st, and it's Monday mornings at 8 a.m., which is Friday mornings at 8 a.m. So you'll want to go to that. And then also the intuitive eating workshop started on Saturday, and it is 12 weeks beginning August 2nd. It's at 9 a.m. Pacific on Saturdays. And so Sam did the introduction on Saturday. It is recorded and will be out there for you to look at. It's amazing. So we're really happy with all the things that are happening in Surrender School. Okay. So a couple of changes that are happening here. We did listen. I basically said, what do you want to do about the holidays and that kind of stuff? So what we're doing now, step 8 forward, is going to be 3 weeks instead of 4 weeks, which means it doesn't match up with the months. So take a picture of this if you want to. I will say my plan had been for the 3rd week to be a makeup session and basically just answer questions and not have a breakout. But it worked out really nicely last week to have a breakout. So each of the weeks we'll have a breakout to do the homework. There just won't be like additional training in the third week, right? So if you miss it, it's okay. You're just going to miss sharing in the breakout. So it's all good. So it's 2 weeks of content with breakouts and then 1 week of just sharing and asking questions and breakout. But there will be a breakout because there's homework. All right. So while I'm sitting on this screen, I want to apologize to everybody because I got a little ahead of myself because I work several weeks ahead. And so I gave you an assignment for this week that should have been assigned for next week. It's okay, those of you that did it, but I think most people were like, what are we doing? All right, so let me explain real quick. With step 8, one of the things that happens, there's basically 3 parts to it that are very distinct parts, and they work beautifully together, but I wanted to introduce them separately. So what you were looking at right now was basically the assessment. You have step 4, you have step 6, and then there's like a spiritual assessment that says, do I really even owe an amends here? I haven't covered that yet. So you were kind of on your own this week going, I don't know. Right. So I haven't even covered what I wanted to cover yet. So I will do that today. And it might change what you share during the breakout room, which you may have said, I have no idea what she wants us to share. And you're probably right. But I'll make it really clear before we go in there so you feel comfortable with what it is. It might feel a little fly by the seat of your pants more than usual, but I think it'll work just fine. So don't put any pressure on yourself because we're all learning. Okay, and I apologize for that. I got ahead of myself. Okay. All right, let's take a moment to feel your breath going in and out and feel your feet on the floor. So let go of everything from before this moment and everything in the future, and let's just be present for where we are right now. Now let's say the Surrender School set aside prayer together. God, help me to set aside everything I think I know to leave space for what I have yet to learn. I have to tell you, I'm learning a lot all the time. So, okay, the goal of this course is a personal journey. Our focus is to help you understand the relationship between your false self or that ego self and your true self, and to treat yourself with unrelenting compassion because you are human. To me, this is the major difference between almost any 12-step program and Surrender School is we believe that you need, there is a need to treat yourself with unrelenting compassion because you are human. All right. So some things to keep in mind. This is working the steps by type. So if you don't know your type, it's going to be a little hard for you to do this. So take the test. It will guide you. We believe that self-contempt stops or at least stalls spiritual growth. It's one of the reasons we work the 12 steps, we do whatever. And if we can't get out of self-contempt, it's almost impossible to grow beyond that. All right. We do believe that if you do the work, you will be supercharged. Your recovery will be supercharged. And then just a gentle reminder that you have lots of choices on all the things you can be in the world. And we ask that you be kind to yourself and also to other people as well. All right. I always put this slide up because the purpose of all of this inquiry, all the questions that we're asking, is so that we can see our patterns as patterns. We actually see that they are patterns, and we see our projections as projections. Okay, the more that we see them, the more they can dissipate. If we don't see them, then they won't dissipate because we don't even see that what it is that we're doing. And so we really want to be able to do that. All right. This was in one of my readings, and I absolutely love it. And I want to read it out loud because I just think that it's just really, really amazing. Okay. The simple rose at each moment of its slow blossoming is as open as it can be. The same is true of our lives. In each stage of our unfolding, we are as stretched as possible, for the human heart is quite slow to blossom and is only seen as lacking when compared to the imagined lover or father or mother that we'd like to become. It helps us to see ourselves as flowers. If a flower were to push itself to open faster, which it can't, it would tear. Yet we humans can and often do push ourselves. Often we tear in places no one can see. When we push ourselves to unfold faster or more deeply than is natural, we thwart ourselves. For nature takes time, and most of our problems of will stem from impatience. So I'm going to take a picture of that if that touched your heart in any way. I know that it did mine. The reason, by the way, that I grabbed this is because I'm hearing from a lot of people, it's like, we went through step 6, we went through 7, and somehow there's this feeling that now I should have arrived by now. I should have whatever. And it's just like the unblossomed rose, the rose that is to be slowly opening, is actually, I think, more beautiful than even the open one, right? So yet we as humans can and often do push ourselves. Often we tear in places no one can see. And that may absolutely be what you are feeling, if you are feeling a little bit lost right now.
Oh, excuse me. Can I get a refill, please?
Coming right up. Excuse me, are you all right?
Yeah. No. It's a long story.
Well, I like stories. I'm considered a bit of a storyteller myself.
My husband? You heard of New York's Noah?
The guy who's building the ark.
That's him.
I love that story. Knowing the ark. You know, a lot of people miss the point of that story. They think it's about God's wrath and anger. They love it when God gets angry.
What is the story about then, the Ark?
Well, I think it's a love story about believing in each other. You know, the animals showed up in pairs. They stood by each other, side by side, just like Noah and his family. Everybody entered the ark side by side.
But my husband says God told him to do it. What do you do with that?
Sounds like an opportunity. Let me ask you something. If someone prays for patience, you think God gives them patience? Or does he give them the opportunity to be patient? If they prayed for courage, does God give them courage, or does he give them opportunities to be courageous? If someone prayed for the family to be closer, do you think God zaps them with warm, fuzzy feelings? Or does he give them opportunities to love each other? Well, I gotta run. A lot of people to serve. Enjoy.
Hopefully everybody got a chance to see that. By the way, this is how step 7 works. We're given the opportunity to choose our true self or our ego self behavior, right? That's what we're given the opportunity to do. All right. I also want to talk real quick about the pause. So this, I was in a retreat years ago. I led a retreat years ago, and I had this little picture. I couldn't find it. I was looking for it. And I have this picture in my room. I took a picture of it. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the next right thought or action. Okay. It is time for the moon shadow. So this is what we're going to do, and this is sharing in the big room. Have you seen an opportunity to choose between the self, the true self, and the ego self? In other words, did you celebrate the pause? Or also, can you see yourself as a rose about to bloom? I'm going to stop sharing. And let me go to the gallery view here. And let me make it full screen. Okay. So does anybody want to share on any of this? And once again, I know I don't think everybody was here when I first started talking about it. I got a little ahead of myself and I assigned you something ahead of time. Then you're all like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to answer. So don't worry about that. Right now, did the rose speak to you is my question. Like that unfolding rose that we can only grow as much as we can at the time. It is what it is another way to say that. Or also this idea that it gives us an opportunity to express that, as opposed to, am I suddenly courageous, or am I given the opportunity to show my courage, to practice my courage? Because it's all about us practicing this, right? Okay, so Lori, to you first.
I'm sorry, Shara just had a question. We had a request for where the reading that was on the rose screen came from.
It came from Mark Nepo's book, The Book of Awakening. And it was from August. Wait a minute, I will tell you because I just read it the other day. It is from August 1st in Mark Nepo's Book of Awakening. And I just think it's so beautiful. So thank you, Lori, for asking that. Did you want to share?
No, sorry.
Okay. All right. Oh, man. Okay, Selma, to you.
Thank you.
There you
Thank you.
go.
Thank you. I want to comment on the part that you as you bring it up every time about the Enneagram, about recognizing when we're coming from our ego self versus our true self, okay? Because this ties into the what do you call it? The I mean the step 8 and resentment and just and asking God to remove our defects. So let me give you an example. A family member said something to me that I took as hurtful and sort of an insult. And but at the time, I didn't catch it right away. So later it hit me like she used my husband as an example of what not to do to someone else. I mean, for someone else. And I realized she didn't mean it. And I realized I had said so many hurtful things in the past. And so said, just let it go, Selma, let it go, let it go. And this was at least a year ago. And when we started doing this step 8, it came up for me as a resentment. So it's not something I did unless it's not forgiving. Because what I've been trying to do for this past year is see her as a divine being, a loving person. She didn't mean it, or do I bring it up to her and say, I'm still carrying this, which is my responsibility. So that's very confusing to me because my ego self says, say something. My true self says, in her heart of hearts who she is. And I was trying to figure that out with this and that the rose thing, I'll try to tie it all in, but the rose thing to me is like step 7. Like I've asked and asked to have it removed, but it's still there. So I'm where I'm supposed to be, or I'm where the only place I can be, right? But
Yes.
how do I know when it's the right time? Because I don't want to feel a lot of times I bring something up that someone has said, and it's like, really? You're bringing that up now? I mean, what? So I can feel better.
Right. And what's type are you? What number?
4.
A 4. Okay. So a couple of things. If once we realize that we can never, and that is capitalized, bolded, and underlined, we can never change other people, period.
Right.
Right. So, and once again, you can't know what her intentions are at all, but you do know she's human, and you know that
Yes.
she wouldn't purposely hurt you. Maybe she's
Right.
cautious, maybe that she was having a bad day, whatever. Right.
Yes.
And so, and you're right. The only thing on your part is, can I forgive her for that? Because she's human. So
Yes.
that's where the compassion comes in. And that's the most you can do, I think.
Okay.
Now, this is interesting because there's so many people that don't say things when they should say things. And that's part of step 7 also, because it's not just an action we've taken, it's when we don't take an action that we should have taken, right?
Yes.
That's where,
Yes.
by the way, you're setting me up for step 8. That's where the spiritual discernment comes in, because this is where we're now praying, can I have spiritual discernment to say, is there an amends that I owe? And you probably don't owe her an amends, right? But there probably is some work that needs to be done there. And it's
Yes.
probably a step 7 kind of work that says, so if we're working step 8, I don't think you would owe an amends if you haven't said anything. I mean,
No.
but you do want to get rid of so I will
Yes.
say page 552 of the big book gives a very, very specific example of how to get over something that is a resentment that doesn't belong there, but you haven't been able to get past it,
Oh,
because
perfect.
you don't want the spiritual bypass where you leap over it and act like everything's fine when it's still there. It comes up a year later.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me summarize step 5 or page 552. It says that if you can't get over a resentment, and this is in the 4th edition, by the way, if you can't get over a resentment, you basically pray for that person to have all the wonderful things that you want in your life.
Right. I
This
forgot
has
that
worked for
part.
me in
Yeah.
the past, and I'm telling you, there was a guy that I came as close to hating as I've hated anyone in my life. And I had all 30 days I had to pray for him. And by the time it was finished, I felt no animosity for him at all. At all. That doesn't even seem possible to me, right?
Mhm.
what happened is it does help me believe in God, because I could not have gotten rid of this myself. So
And
page
this is
552, I
Oh,
mean, it's
yes,
on.
I
Go ahead.
know that net passage, right? So I will
Yeah,
go look at that and reread it.
yeah.
But this is a pattern of mine where something you say hurts me and I have to hold you accountable. And that's the reason I didn't say anything, because I want to be relieved of taking everything so personally I have to punish you. So,
Yeah, but do you see, Selma, how beautiful that is, that you can see that
yeah,
pattern? Because so often what happens with the fours is they don't see that. They are doing damage. Now, let's say you had a year later gone and said, when you said blah, 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 and this woman is like,
right,
I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't remember saying anything
right.
like that. And now there's a rift there because you couldn't get over something, right? And so basically, yeah.
It's
So
all
often
about
for the
me
two, three,
managing my
for twos,
feelings.
threes, and fours, so much of it is about basically being able to balance, put things in perspective and balance that. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a
Thank
tough
you.
one. My
Yeah,
stuff, my amends, the amends I owed were so overt, right? I got in someone's face, right? They were
yeah.
so overt. It's so easy to see. It's like, I was at an OA conference one time, and this lady talked about that she said this. It was an alcoholic person who was driving a car and ran into a group of people and did all this stuff. And she said, and the only thing I did wrong is I polished off a gallon of ice cream while I sat and watched it on television, right? So it's like they're slightly different levels of stuff, right? So anyway, thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, dear. All right, Tamara, to you.
Good morning. So I appreciated you said so many people don't say things that need to be said. Well, I don't know if this needs to be said, but I need to say it. I appreciated you at the beginning saying, "Oh yeah, sorry I sent you guys on a wild goose chase all week. I wish I had let you know that sooner, because I really wish that would have been put out there sooner, because I let myself get completely distressed. I felt very behind. I have so that I just I felt I needed to say that. That probably is my type 6 coming out more than maybe other people felt. Um, as far as the actual topic that you asked us to speak about, opportunity, yes, I've seen an opportunity. Self-doubt, one of the things I've been trying is doing things that are very comfortable for me. And one of those is driving this tiller motorboat. And a couple days ago, I took myself in the boat over to the little town next to where our cabin is and did an errand. So that felt great. And then I came back and I was like, okay, whew, I did it. Well, then later in the day, we had all these family members coming in because we have 2 memorials this weekend, and there's 12 family members here, and there's 2 boats, and the other boat that my brother, he was being the taxi man. I got a text saying, oh, or a call, the boat died. We're all stuck over here. So I was like, and I'm the only one over here that can drive a boat. So I had to go get in the boat again and drive it over. And, I didn't give any, like distressful response. I just jumped in the boat and went over there. Yeah. So that was the opportunity. Now the rose the rose is where am right now I am in the soup or sludge of all the family dysfunction, because I have my father, my brother, my other brother, my daughter, my stepbrother, my stepsister, and we're having 2 memorials. And the best I can do, and I could see myself slipping into self-contempt, because I'm like, I should be able to do a lot better at this, not falling into emotional unsobriety, for lack of a better word. And then I'm like, no, they're all crazy. I feel like because of the awareness, it's just, I feel like, an awareness cacophony. We over around dinner last night, people were supposed to be, or the opportunity was to share memories about our 100-year-old friend who died. Well, there are some big personalities who their sharing is really, it flips back to something, it's it's a reflection of how wonderful they were in taking care of it. I was just overwhelmed with everybody's shit. And all I could do was just sit there. And so I think I did the best I could to just sit there and not really say anything and just kind of take it in and be a quiet person. So I'm overwhelmed. And so that is also, I don't know why I didn't really want this to happen. And it's a week before I go back to school. I said, this is the worst week for me, you guys. And that's when they did it. And so anyway, thank you for listening. So that is my rose, and I'm definitely feeling it that I need, and my daughter came out unexpectedly, which is a good thing because she's kind of on her own recovery path, but I just felt like a terrible person for even having all these mean thoughts and going, just kind of judging all them for being themselves. And I was just like, oh my gosh. But thank you for the reminder about self-contempt, because I think just even being able to survive in this situation is like a victory. We just putting myself in that is just hard. So anyway, thank you. Thank you.
No, and so first of all, the opportunity to be courageous, awesome for a 6 especially. And I want to say, so here is what I do when I'm placed in, just a few weeks ago, I was placed in a similar circumstance, right? Similar to some degree. And what I did is I played the game. Can I guess, in my mind, can I guess their Enneagram type? That was it.
Yes,
I've
got it. I've got a 3, a 9, a 7.
Exactly.
An 8.
And inside then it delights me because I go, oh, well, of course they're going to tell, John his hero stories because John's a 3. That is exactly what he's going to say. He is so true to form. It's perfect. And that way I'm not battered by all that. It sounds terrible, probably. It sounds judgy, but I don't feel judgy because I'm feeling compassion for them because they're stuck in whatever their shit is. And that is helpful, I think. So if you can do that, if you have other things, other get-togethers that you have to do.
Oh, we still have a whole day.
So inside your own head, just see if you can figure out what Enneagram, because I'll tell you what, in groups like that, people show up as their type. They can't help it.
Oh my gosh. All the family of origin stuff. So anyway, I didn't want to really take up so much time.
And I'm sorry that I added stress to your stressful week because I know I did. So I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, Jasmine, to you.
Thanks, Cheryl. So in response to the stress of not knowing and stuff, it was a relief for me, but this was my experience with it because I could be perfectionistic, and it was refreshing to see you have that hanging loose perspective and approach to it, because I certainly did. I did not do my homework until the last minute, but it was when I was able to do it. And it wasn't a lack of willingness, it's because I juggle like a lot of hats. With that being said, it's fine. And you made it even more fine, even though I'm learning to forgive myself when things roll over and I'm not able to complete things. I just let it go into the next day, do what I can and leave the rest. But thank you for supporting me in that. So about the balloons thing, I needed that because I had like this takeover Wednesday and a meltdown. Went to one of the Serena School reading rooms for Drop the Rock. So embarrassed afterwards. I was like, oh my God, I'm a mess. But it was okay because Jim, he did an outreach and he was like, thank you for actually coming, authentically. And I appreciated that because it gave me permission to fall apart. And it's okay. Like, even if I'm not stoic and a black belt at all of this stuff every single day, it is fine. I was having a rough ass time because anybody with teenagers got me with them. Anyway, so to answer your question, the bloom thing was so soothing to my spirit. And then I looked up, do blooms close? And they do. It says it's called nyctinasty, however you say it. It's a phenomenon where they close in a response for self-protection when they're cold, when it's to protect their pollen, uh, regulating temperature. It's about regulating. And sometimes if I show up messed up, it's because I am probably scrambling trying to be okay. So with that, I just feel so affirmed in this moment, and I appreciate everything about Surrender School.
Awesome. Thank you, Jasmine. Yeah, I love flowers in my garden that are the ones that close at night when it's dark and open during the day. Yeah, I'm telling you, that flower thing was so compelling to me, especially because I'd realized I'd made this mistake with 48 people and not giving the right assignment. And do I change the assignment or not? Right. So I was super stressing out. And Joy is like, okay, so what do you think we should do? I'm like, I'm just going to apologize and tell them that I assigned it and they're probably confused and sorry, So yeah, but so I hear you. And the rose thing for me was like, if I compare myself to the perfect person I wish I was, I'm screwed. I can't do that. I can only be the person I am. Right now, I'm stutter stepping. I'm used to doing things the month that is we do step 8 in month 8. It's like, no, Cheryl, is changing, right? So yeah, all is well. Thank you, Jasmine, for that. I love the rose. And if you don't have that Book of Awakening, it's Daily Reader, and I'm telling you, I think it's absolutely beautiful. But that rose one, I think, was really cool. Thank you, Jasmine. All right, Richard, to you.
Thanks, Cher. What I'm about to say, my guess is that some of you, maybe a lot of you, are going to say to yourselves, and it's okay, I'm comfortable with this. Duh, that's obvious. And it wasn't to me, okay? So I was working on, and of course, I thought we were supposed to do all 3 columns, but anyway, I was working on the first column, my reactive behavior, and who would be on that list. And being an anger type, my interpretation was that the harm I've caused has been in terms of being on the attack. And then, and this is the duh part, then suddenly I realized, wait a minute, what about the times that I have withdrawn, where I haven't gone after people, but I've backed away from them? So going away from them and going toward them, there's still some harm there. And it opened up another part of the list for me. There were other people where I realized, oh, there's amends work to do there because I've withdrawn from them.
Thank you, Richard. And I'll say, that's not usually my problem. I'm just kidding, but it's the truth. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. So some of it, that comes back to that action, an action you shouldn't have taken, or an action you should have taken when you didn't, right? So I think both ends of that for sure. I think I'm probably going to amaze you, because when I cover the content on step 8, I think we're going to owe a lot fewer amends than you think you owe. I think that is usually the way it's going to end up working out. I don't know if that's true, but at least it feels that way with me. Thank you, Richard, for that.
I guess the point I'm making is that backing away is also an action, not just moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes appropriate and sometimes not so much, right? So yeah, these people that give people the silent treatment, I've never done that. I don't think I'm even capable of giving someone the silent treatment, and that's okay, because that's usually not a good thing to do either. I also want to thank Richard for the link to the opportunity for whatever that video clip came from Richard, and I thought it was wonderful, and I couldn't get it to load into my PowerPoint, so he did it for me. So thank you for that, because I think it's a very cool little clip. Thank you. All right,
And
Dave,
thanks for the acknowledgement.
Sure, you bet. Dave, to you.
Yeah, hi everybody. So I always look at Surrender School as the classroom and the rest of my life as the lab for me to practice these things. And my lab partner in most of these things is my mom. And when you said self-contempt, stalls spiritual growth, I thought, well, I don't have any self-contempt. And I thought, well, actually, there is a part of me that says, really, a 66-year-old man is still dealing with issues with his 88-year-old mom? What is wrong with you? So that's my self-contempt that I get sometimes. But anyway, this past week I had a couple opportunities to practice responding instead of reacting with her. And we went out to dinner with her, which we do about every 2 weeks, with her and our daughter and her husband. And while we were driving home, we were talking about the fact that I go to some 12-step meetings at my mom's church. Now, she does not go to church very often because we would have to take her there, or somebody has to take her there. And on Sunday mornings, I'm right here. So I'm not taking her to church because I'm here. Not that I did all the time anyway before, but this is important to me for me to be here. So anyway, she said, well, I get to go to church every once in a while. I guess the next time I'll get to go is when your sister and her friend visit. And if I was really tempted to just put her on blast and say, Mom, we have other stuff to do, blah, blah, blah. The world doesn't revolve around you. I just said, oh, when's that going to be? When are they visiting? Oh, I guess it's going to be the end of August. Oh, well, won't that be nice? Is all I said. And then the other one was, my daughter helps my mom with her hearing aids. She works at Costco, and my mom has her hearing aid at Costco, and they work together for her appointments to like do maintenance with these hearing aids and stuff. So my mom had said, I called Jessie and I left her a voicemail, but I haven't heard back from her because I need to get over to Costco to do this. And I said, well, Mom, people of that generation don't like to talk on the phone. They would rather text. So if you want to have her respond, I'd suggest that you send her a text message. And she says, okay, well, you can do that for me. And I said, I could do that for you, but I'm an unnecessary person in this conversation. So what I'd suggest is that you text her yourself. She says, well, okay, if that's the way you want it. And I just left it at that. And she texted her that same day and got it taken care of that same day. But I felt so good about using an Al-Anon principle with her about detachment. And it took me a long time to understand what that meant. But somebody put an acronym up that was so wonderful on the board one day. So detachment stands for don't even think about changing him or her. And when I apply that, I let go of my mom should change. She's almost 89 years old. She should change. She's not going to frickin' change. Okay. She might, but if she does, it'll have nothing to do with me. So anyway, I felt good about responding in a different way than I instantly want to react. So it's a work in progress, but I feel like that was progress. So
That's
thank you.
awesome. Yeah. And it's like you see the pattern and you interrupt the pattern, right? You see the pattern and go, nope, that's the pause. I don't want to act like I don't want to blast her. I'm not going to do that. Could I? Well, yeah, of course I could. I'm not going to. I'm going to choose this path instead. That's awesome. Thank you, Dave, for sharing that. All right, Becca, to you.
Well, obviously, this isn't what I was going to share, but that was awesome, Dave. Thank you. And what I wanted to share is with regard to the rows, that pushing is what I've done all my life with my personal growth. And it has to do with being a type 4 of, I'm never enough. I'm looking at other people and thinking they have a life I don't. And, there's that idealism that comes into play. And my mantra is just working so well. The second half of it is presence, not perfection, is the gateway to the divine and the fruits of the spirit. And when I find myself anxious or pushing, the way I'm doing this year is much less like I can get into spending hours on something that someone else would spend 10 minutes on. And I'm just not doing that. And when I find myself getting anxious or kind of overwhelmed, I'm using this, and really presence is such a good anchor for me, rather than it puts me into my body and my heart, takes me out of my head. And then the other thing is the rose. I loved that rose reading that you shared. I've heard a similar one with a butterfly trying to get out of the cocoon. And somebody comes along and they see this butterfly struggling, and they try and save it from the work. And so they kind of tear it open, and then it dies. And it's because the butterfly needed to be working against its restraint in order to have the strength and the development to come out. And I use that one as well. So thank you.
Thank you,
And
Becca. And I want to say too, I do think that it ties to the 4, especially because when it talks about the tears inside, right? That there are tears that happen when you're trying to push that beyond what growth you're supposed to have at the time. And I just thought that was fascinating. I think so good. Thank you for sharing that, Becca. All right, Rosalind, to you, and then Michelle, and then we will move on. So go ahead, Rosalind.
So I don't know if this fits right now, but for me, I need to share. I'm stepping out of my isolation. That's the big thing for me. And so I took my first mobile notary assignment, first time ever. And I have to read this because you're not going to believe it. So I took my notary assignment and I went, and it went exactly how I thought it was going to go. And there were so many out of place sequences that could have shut me down, from the change of the meeting place, not arriving at the right place, having to contact the borrower because I handed them the wrong docs. I'm running out of a 2-hour window time that these need to be scanned back. But the good news is I can use my phone to do that. The bad news is the borrower just went 30 minutes away from the location. And so they text me over their location. And when I get to them, my phone dies. So I can't scan. So I like to say it got better, but no, it didn't. I had to contact the borrowers again and make an apology because I failed to get a copy of their driver's license, and to make amends for not meeting other obligations in the day. Now, for 4, someone whose safety is in isolation, right then would have been a good time for me to retreat indefinitely. And that's what the enemy, though, wants me to think in my head, wants me to say, look, you screwed up. You screw up everything. You might as well just give it up. But I decided that I am not going to go down that party of that self-pity. And I'm going to get back on the horse and I'm going to try it again, no matter what. But yeah, everything that could went wrong that first time. So I say it can't be worse the next time around.
That's a great attitude,
Yeah.
Rosalind.
So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm telling you, there are days like that, and I just, it's called life. Thank you, Rosalind. All right, Michelle, to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to share this really quick. It goes along with the rose thing. And there is this quote that I have used, at the beginning. I teach yoga, so I've used this before and I used this recently. And it's a quote that, well, it says, yoga is a space where flower blossoms. And then the little kind of, analysis of that is that a flower does not think of competing with the flower next to it. It just blooms. To blossom, the lotus flower must grow through mud and dirty pond water. It blooms anyway. Though conditions are tough, the lotus heeds the call of the sun each morning, breaks the surface of the water, and blooms untouched by the mud. Each petal remains clean and pure. And then I just, shared, that we would exist like a lotus and be at ease even in the muddy waters. So, yeah, that just made me think of that. And is there one more thing? There might be one more thing that I wanted to say. Well, it was just, yeah, along with that idea of the flower, you know, the idea of not competing. I've heard this meditation where it was, you know, saying like it doesn't look at the flower next to it and say, oh, I wish I was that tall. It doesn't say, oh, I wish I was like that. It's like it just is its own in its own way, its own beauty. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to share.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right, let me share my screen again and we will move on. All right, thank you everybody for your shares. All right, that kind of wraps up step 7. Now we're moving towards step 8, and I want to talk about the 3 sections that are in step 8. So first, the assignment that you had today, which really you weren't prepared for, so I once again apologize, is spiritual discernment. And the spiritual discernment actually is asking, do I really owe an amends here? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. The second part is obstacles to willingness. So if I owe an amends, what is blocking me from making the amends? And then the third part of it is what types of amends are there and which of these do I owe if I owe an amends? Here is the issue. Even though we split these out, which I think is a good way to teach it, always what informs that, what is blocking me is informed by the spiritual discernment. Right? And what is blocking me also is determined by which of these potential amends do I owe. So they all do work together, which means by the time we're finished with step 8, everyone should feel very comfortable with it. But between here and there, it's going to feel like we're stutter stepping. It just will. Step 8, usually what happens is it basically says, made a list of those we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So this is basically, okay, I have a list from step 4. I have a list from step 6, right? Now I've got this list, where do I owe an amends and where don't I? Just because, and I think this ties back to what Selma said, just because it was uncomfortable doesn't mean that you owe an amends there, right? And I really, really believe with all my heart, the way that I live my life, I do not make amends. I do not apologize when I have not done something wrong. There are a lot of people who wander the world apologizing for everything. And then it makes it very difficult to decide, is this my role or not? You know, just because things are uncomfortable. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So spiritual discernment, do I owe an amends? All right. So I put out on WhatsApp also. This week, we're going to fill in that first column, my reactive behavior, how I reacted. Next week, so the assignment for next week will be the obstacles to willingness, right? And once again, this is all from your step 4, step 6 forms that you filled out. And then the third week, we'll talk about what type of amends and do you owe for that. So I'm going to use type 2 as an example. So there's a section called spiritual discernment, do I owe an amends? Review your step 4 harm form. Amends are only needed when your actions came from your defenses and resulted in real emotional, physical, financial, or spiritual harm. Simply having strong emotions or expressing a need with kindness does not require an amends. Neither does expressing boundaries that someone else disliked. Amends are not needed for thoughts or feelings. They are also not needed when you spoke truth kindly and clearly and someone simply didn't like hearing it. All right, I'm going to pull up 2 sections here. The first is, they are also not needed when you spoke the truth kindly and clearly and someone didn't like hearing it. Very often with 2s, if they'll stand up for themselves, that person is not accustomed to it, they don't like it, and then they feel like they've done something wrong. They haven't. Okay, at the bottom, there's a type 2 reminder at the bottom that says, you may think, I was just trying to help. They should have been grateful. But if your actions were driven by fear, control, or the need to be needed, even if expressed kindly, it may have caused harms. Now, I'm going to change this because I don't agree with what is said here, by the way, because I don't believe that let me show you what it says right now. Step 8 invites you to take responsibility for what others experienced, not just what you intended. That is not true. I am not responsible for what that person experienced. I am responsible for what I intended and what I did. So this boils down to check your motives. You have to check your motives. And once again, very often our motives are hidden from us. We don't know that that's what's happening. So those of you, and I'm going to talk specifically to the type 2s, those of you that are type 2s, right, before you started working here, it makes me feel like, yeah, I've kind of ruined your life because before you started working on all this, right? You were all goodness and kindness and all giving and and now you realize, oh no, that has a hook on it. And I'm not that giving at all. I'm actually very selfish because I want that person to love me, so I'm doing all this stuff. But we don't always see that. We don't always see that, right? There's a manipulation piece to that, or can be. And then once we see it, then we're a bit adrift. And so the idea here is, if we're checking our motives, that is what we're looking at. Okay, I am going to let me stop sharing again, and we'll come back here, because I want people to feel comfortable with what it is that I'm saying. When someone says the words, "that triggered me," in my opinion, if my motives were good, whatever I said, right? And I don't blast people anymore, just like Dave talked about that, right? He says to his mom, right? The stuff he said to his mom. If his mom reacted badly or didn't like that or hurt her feelings, he's not responsible for her experience of that. That's right. If that triggered her to feel like she's betrayed or whatever, okay, that's her deal. So very often what happens in the world today, because people will say that triggered me. Well, that sounds like an opportunity for you to figure that out. That sounds like an opportunity for you to figure out, why did that trigger you? I didn't do anything to trigger you. I'm just living my life, being honest and kind. I want to be kind, right? But I have to be very honest with myself. What was my goal here? What was my motive? What motivated me? If it was a defense that motivated me, I may owe an amends for that. If I'm just living my life and that defense, there is no defense. This is the true me and I'm living my life. Unless there's some kind of unkindness or something, I don't owe an amends unless I've done something wrong to that person. Okay, and that is a foreign concept in most circles. It is a foreign concept to think of it that way. And maybe that makes me a bastard. I don't know, an asshole, some other horrible word. I don't know. But I do think that, and once again, I'm trying to read expressions here. Most people are like, I don't know if I'm buying into this at all, but that's okay. All right, so with that in mind, go ahead, Joy.
Yeah. I walked around always being sorry. And I just wanted to speak to this because it's something I just discovered about the impact. And I had a big discussion with my God squad. I am not responsible for the impact of my behavior. And that'll be a big reaction from a lot of people, because the behavior that I exhibit, depending on a person's Enneagram type, it's going to affect them differently. If I show up late, for example, I may be sorry that I'm late, but however, different people, not only Enneagram type, even the same Enneagram type, may take my late behavior, may be happy they had time to do something. But I am responsible for being late, but not the impact of that behavior. And also, what I guess you're talking more about the intent, but it's just so big. This is so big because I think that what I do, if someone has a big reaction and they're all, that's not my problem. That is their problem. And how we go through life and how we respond to our discomfort and other people's behavior, that is our problem.
Exactly. And so it's almost layered, right? It's like the first action, then they react, and then we react, and that reaction we may owe an amends for, but the initial thing. And so this is what I'm finding is the key to all of this is to be able to be honest with ourselves and truly understand what our motivations are, which is why I keep referring back to the basic fear, the basic desire, the passion. Those are the things, right? This is all tied, by the way. I don't know that I don't even know that I can teach it, but it is so tied to what we learn in step 7. It's so tied to what our defenses are. And once again, so far, it probably will be easier than listing like everything from your step 4 and everything from your step 6, is to pick that one defense that you have and be able to give examples. And when we go to the breakout room, was my plan. But I'm going to have you guys decide, do we go to breakout rooms, or did I give you such a bad assignment that nobody's ready for the breakout rooms? I don't know. So we can, I would love opinions on that. But here's the idea. And the idea is, can I see, and in my case, once again, the one that I chose was to basically be able to stop resisting, or to not resist wise guidance. And so last week I'm listening, I'm acting like a new person. I'm not, but every once in a while that will pop up. I know that pops up. So that's a defense for me. And I know it's a defense. And every once in a while I'm working with a coach and I can feel myself resisting that, right? And I'm like, no, I don't want to resist this. I'm going to listen to what this person has to say. This is the wise guidance we're talking about. So far, I've been able to stop, to basically use the pause and do what God is asking me to do. I've been able to do that. It doesn't mean I'm going to be able to do it next week or even later today. I don't know. Right. But so, and the idea here is, if I'm not, and I get in somebody's face, I'm going to owe an amends for that, because that's not appropriate. This person is trying to help me, and I'm right. So I guess what I'm saying there is, if you can grab whatever is that defense that you used in step 6 and 7, and see if you have examples of that could potentially crop up. This is how you see your growth, by the way, right? All right. So even 8 and 9 will not be a list of everyone you owe an amends to, but there may be one that you really feel strongly you owe an amends for, and then we can sit down and talk about that specifically. All right, Joy, you again. Thank you, Jim. Go ahead, Joy.
Even though I'm not responsible for the reaction of my behavior, this is where Surrender School comes in with the compassion. Because of the Enneagram, I can take ownership when I am triggered, but I also have to honor myself. I'm going to give you an example of this. So my husband, he was talking about something, and I became triggered. I would think that 99% of the people would not be triggered by this thing that he was talking about, but because of the work I'm doing, I was triggered. When I'm triggered, this is where the pause comes in. You notice how you're feeling. And I'm doing this now, this too. I don't know what feelings are, but I noticed it. I asked for him to stop. By the way, he didn't this particular time. And I asked again, and he didn't. And then because I was so triggered, I went and called my sponsor, because I felt like my behavior was not okay. I told him to stop. I said, get away from me. Don't touch me. And, we're married a long time, but I was so triggered by him continuing. And I told her I did this, and I yelled and I screamed and this. And she said to me, you're feeling, it's okay. Because I was telling her how I was feeling. So we learned to take ownership of our responses. I know this was a little, I'm learning to accept who I am. And I didn't owe an apology there. I was feeling, that is who I am. It triggered me. I'll be quiet. Sorry.
No, it's good. Yeah, because I think, okay, so I will say 2s, 4s, 9s are the types that usually will apologize when they don't owe an apology, right? When they've done nothing wrong whatsoever, they will step up and do that, right? 6s, when afraid, sometimes will do that as well, right? When afraid. So then guess what you get to do? You get to go, oh, I'm afraid. That's why I'm feeling, and by the way, it doesn't mean that you don't feel compelled to make the apology. So when I say the thing, unless I see that I have done something wrong, I don't apologize. I do consider whenever I am unkind, that is wrong. I do consider that. I just say across the board, if I'm unkind, I don't even care what my motivation is. There's no valid motivation for me being unkind ever. There just isn't. Now I can accidentally be unkind. I didn't intend to, didn't even think I was being unkind, that person. And I usually don't apologize for that, because this is like, your deal, whatever that is. Okay. I'm trying to read people's expressions, and today it's really hard. And I don't know if it's me or you, but I'm not sure. Lori, your hand is up. I hope you have something to save me.
Possibly. There is some request that we do not have breakout rooms today. People are enjoying the conversation going on in here today, and okay.
Okay, yeah.
No need to say any more.
Thank you. And I'm about as versatile a trainer as you.
But Kathy, great work.
Yeah, thank you.
We don't need it.
So today, Kathy, this is her first day of doing breakout rooms, so she's ready to go, and we're not going to do breakout rooms. But it was good practice, right, Kathy?
It was a great training session.
There you go. Awesome.
It took now I don't know anything what you said, Cher, but
but it's all
so
good.
I may see you tomorrow morning.
That's awesome.
No, it's all good.
She'll need a therapy session tomorrow.
That's right. That's
yes,
right.
definitely.
All
to
right.
recover.
So what I'd love to do then, this is what we're going to do now, is let's just talk about situations where you, and if we can, from the perspective of, here is a defense that I have, here's an example of that defense, right? Now, I need to say, this is going to be a spoiler alert, I suppose, for step 9. Anytime that you are going to make an apology, a true apology begins with, I'm sorry, I. It does not say, I'm sorry that you feel that way. That is not a fucking apology, right? That is not an apology. I'm sorry you is not an apology. I'm sorry I is an apology, or something like that. But it's always on my actions, my actions. We never apologize or make amends for feelings, ever, because that's what blocks feelings. Right? If we have a feeling about something, good, it's giving you information. What are we going to do with that? If I'm triggered by something, I get to look at that and say, why is that triggering me? And guess what? It's almost always from something from childhood. It's almost always from something from a pattern that I don't even see that I have. That's why where we're sitting right now is a really cool place, because we've just come up off of step 7, where we've identified this one defense. And it's probably, if you pick the defense that kicks your butt, it's probably going to be tied to that defense. All right, Shirley, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to say that, I still feel like cloudy and in the dark. I mean, I know that as a type 2, I have fear, control, boundary issues. I need to be needed. I agree with you, Joy. I walk around always being sorry and saying, I must say thank you 200 times a day. And I am becoming aware of that, but I don't know how to, I feel stuck. I don't know how to take the next step into, do I need to make an amend? It feels just like the abyss.
Okay, so I will say, no, you don't need to make an amends. Unless it shows up as needing an amends, you don't need to make an amends. But I will say, you are the little unbloomed rose. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. It feels very uncomfortable. You are ready to blossom, and you're not there yet. And it's okay, because that's where you are. And Shirley, you actually are the reason I wanted to use the rose thing, because you have come to me and said, I feel like I'm not moving forward. I'm not right, because you're comparing yourself to something, and it's not someone, but to something that you should be. No, where you are is exactly where you're supposed to be. And you know how you know that? Because it's where you are.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Where does self-acceptance, I'm just beginning to understand what self-acceptance is.
And basically, and that's exactly the way that it works, right? We see little glimmers. I talk about when early on in my program, it's like, I have a realization, and then I'm like a little mouse that goes and hides, and then eventually I
Yeah.
poke my head back out, and then I come back out, because it isn't like, oh, like, yeah, I would love to say, and the sun shined, and butterflies. No, that isn't the way it happens. I see it, and then I go hide, and then I come back out and go, well, okay, are we ready to look at that again and really see where that happens? And that, I think, is the way it always works. Michael Naylor talks about it takes decades to grow. It takes a long time. And what we do in self-acceptance is we say, okay, I'm going to stay with this discomfort, because that's what life is, filled with discomfort. And I've spent my entire life fleeing from discomfort in some form, right? I do it by barking at somebody until they leave me alone. Okay, that's not working, right? Whereas other people back away, or other people don't say something, or other people, they'll be bold and say something, and then they feel ashamed, and then they apologize when they don't owe an apology, because all they did was express their feelings, right? But you get to express your feelings. So it's like, I think, and once again, if the words that we live by are compassion and kindness, almost always we are not going to owe amends, right? Almost always. So, and once again, and I think for a 2, something to think about, my sponsor said this all the time, I do not have the right to do for you something that you should do for yourself. So if you keep that as kind of a byproduct of the way you live your life, that keeps the 2s from doing more, right? Because Bill W. talks about this. Even in your kindness, weren't you self-seeking, right? Even in your kindness, weren't you self-seeking? And we see that. Now, here's the thing. I can see that, hate it, flee away from it, hide from it, or I can see that and have compassion for myself. I can see that and say, oh, I see what I'm doing here. Okay, I don't want to be like that. I want to, because this is the cool part about the 2. The 2 in complete recovery is giving and loving without a hook. The hook that says, and then you will love me, disappears, and they're just good and kind. So all the things you seek to be, you are, right? I mean, I can't even, I mean, the best way to explain it is exactly that. Everything that you wish you were, you already are.
Right. So what I hear you saying is that this whole idea of not having self-acceptance and, just, it's all like an internal job. It's looping between my own ears and, okay.
It's a story you're telling yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
you are telling yourself that you are unacceptable when you are acceptable. You're telling yourself you're not enough when you are enough. And once again, this I'm not trying to make it small or make it like, so just feel that way. I'm not even smart enough to tell you how to do that, other than the fact that you work the program, right? We do the work because a big chunk of this is coming from our greater power, right? Who's going to say, my child, don't you see you are enough? And at some point in time, we believe it. At some point in time, we go, oh, I am enough. Not every minute of every day, but yeah, every minute of every day. Just sometimes I make mistakes, just because guess what? I'm human and I live on the earth, right? So it's like,
Right.
and then what happens is, instead of these big, I love myself, I hate myself, I love myself, I hate me. No, it ends up, it's never straight. But I end up just basically seeing, oh, this is the way life works. And that is what Alan Berger's emotional sobriety stuff is about. He takes it from these big loops down to just basically these little moguls. That's all we have, right? Yeah, there are days I feel bad, days I feel good, moments I feel bad, moments I feel good. And that's the way life is. And what happens is then we get to see the panorama of life and other people. And then it's back to what Tamara, that we talked about, Tamara, with you. It's like, if I can sit and not get caught up in what the stories are and what does it say about me and what does it say about my family and what does it say about what it isn't about how good you were to that person is 100, all of that. If you can even that out to where you can go, oh, that's a 3, of course they're acting like a 3, oh, that's a 6, okay, I see, oh, that's a 2, I see that. And then what happens is we're just observing. We can detach, which the 5s are really good at detaching, and that's what we can do, because we can all pull that in, and that makes our life better. And then guess what? We are free. And from that come days of happiness and moments of joy. Okay, that was a lot. Okay, to Becca, to you.
Well, it's interesting how you're talking about reading faces to see how what you're saying is coming across. That is kind of how I have lived is reading faces to see whether I am doing something wrong. And I want to tell you, I'm learning a lot from you today, Cher. It's not an unheard. I've heard what you're talking about, but you're giving it context and kind of a vision that is helping me. Being a type 4, I have, I look to the outside, people's reactions to see how I'm doing. And that's something I've learned in here. I didn't learn that in my last Enneagram work that I was doing. I didn't learn that that was part of being type 4. And I was also really interested that you said, I think 2, 4, and 9 tend to apologize when they don't need to. And there's times where I've apologized later and somebody's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And, it's interesting because it is really important to me how I impact people. And so it's sometimes hard to find that line. And the type that I least feel that I integrated into myself is your type, which is type 8. And you make it nice and simple and direct, and nothing is very simple or direct with me ever. And so I'm learning a lot from you in how you're saying this. One thing that this idea that with my mantra, presence, not perfection, is that I've learned throughout this class that my center has lived outside of me. I've put it out in the world and how people respond to me, how I'm coming across, whether I'm a good person. And I'm slowly bringing my center back into myself and that center back into myself is evolving into presence. And for me, I'm using the word presence rather than mindfulness because I'm in my head all the time. And I don't like to meditate. Being mindful just makes me anxious. So presence becomes more in tune with kind of like being in tune with myself. But it's also really important to me that I'm in attunement with people that I care about. And actually even the grocery store clerk, I don't want to do things to mess up their day. And so, finding that balance between attunement, which presence has a real capacity to bring me into more attunement. And I'm just scratching the surface on presence. I haven't really had much. It's all been in my head and it's been outside of me. So thank you so much for this time, Sharon, for your perspective.
You bet. And I want to say, as an 8, in here, when I'm looking at people's faces, it's because of the role that I'm playing right now, which is instructor. I care. When I am living my life, I could give a rat's ass what anybody else. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's not quite that bad, but I to the point that if I notice that somebody has this look of anger or I've done something, they have a reaction, I save that for, unless right then I realize what happened. That's part of my end of night review. What was I saying? What did they say? I don't do that. I used to ruminate every second afterward. I'm going over what I should have said, what they should have said, what were they thinking? Crazy making. So now at the end of the day, I'll look back and say, okay, is there anything where that happened? Right. But as an instructor, I'm watching, I'm looking for cues and trying to figure that out. And I'm relatively good at it, but I don't live my life like that because otherwise I'm inside my head all the time. And I want to say, Becca, one of the things that happens as we come to where we feel compassion for ourselves, that's when we want to return home, right? until we can feel compassion for ourselves, why the hell would we want to be where all the self-condemnation is? We wouldn't, right? So the presence comes when the compassion is there, is when the presence begins to come back. That's when you start being present again. Just like as a little baby, they don't have a choice in being present. They're present all the time, right? Because they don't have all this other stuff going on. But then we build up all that ego structure, and then we basically distance ourselves because there's all this self-condemnation. And I think it's especially true of the 4. So once you can feel that compassion and love for yourself, you will want to return home. You will want to be present. And that's what's happening with you. I think that's beautiful. Just absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. All right, Joy, to you.
Third time's a charm. I can't tell you the number of people, even in surrender school, who have contacted me and told me how terrible they feel when as being part of this, right? Yet they keep coming back. And there's something in the in the Light of the Moon book, they describe it as a labyrinth. And at first we're going in and going around and around, and there's all this entanglement, and we get in kind of to the center. And we're seeing ourselves as we truly are. Doesn't matter what Enneagram type you are. And when we see the trouble that we see these defenses, we kind of sit with everything, how we were in the world. We get to the center of the labyrinth. And what happens is we start, Shirley was asking, how do you get out of this, right? This just seeing and have compassion. And I think it's this work. We see it and we go easy on ourselves. We have compassion for ourselves and we try it and we fall and we're really, really clumsy. And then I think there's a point which we felt different than everybody else on the face of this earth. And we've wanted to be either our perfect idea of who we should be or somebody else. We want to be like somebody else and have what they have. And when right before you're moving, you're taking that step out of the labyrinth, when you no longer want to be anyone else, this is just for me, right? I want to be myself. I start honoring who I am. I start paying attention to that pause. What am I feeling? What am I thinking in that moment? And I'm not trying to do anything. This is life. We accept life as it is, our journey as it is. We don't try to be anyone else's journey, do anyone else's journey. I think I'm right here. Like I'm just starting to step out. Just maybe I have 1 foot out now, but I stayed in that depression for a long time, and it was not fun. That we have to have the compassion for ourselves and go to our higher power for that, at least for me, because I can't get it any other way. I don't think I'm okay, right? My higher power gives that to me. I believe that's within me, though, So anyway, I'll be quiet. Thanks.
Thank you, Joy. I want to say too, if you've ever been at a campfire and you throw something in, sparks fly up, right? There's a saying in the Bible that says, in the Old Testament somewhere, I think it's in Job somewhere, that says, man goes to trouble as the sparks fly upward. Sparks fly upward. It's what they do. They don't go down into the ground. They fly upward, and we go to trouble. We will do that inevitably because we're human. That's part of the human experience. And that's how we learn. So this somehow, the expectation that we're going to be perfect, and I'll tell you a quick story. So I see this thing every once in a while on Facebook. I don't go there often, but it says, how not to dress old, right? And these women are dressed so beautifully. And I'm like, oh, I would love to dress like that. And then I look, and I'm not willing to spend the money they spend. I'm not willing to do dry cleaning. I will not iron. I won't wear shoes like that. It's like, there's no fucking way I'm ever going to dress like that. I would love to dress like that, but it's never going to happen, ever. So I'm having a crisis, I guess. It's like, I know that I'm not going to do that. I wish I was that. I'm not. I never will be. There's too many obstacles in the way. I mean, I have an iron. I don't think I have an ironing board. Maybe I do somewhere. I can't remember. Anyway, clearly not going to happen. And some of that is just the acceptance of myself. So what's wrong with dressing old? I am old. I don't care. Anyway, but it's that kind of thing, right? All of that is due. All of us in some form wish that we were different in some way. And it's like, no, so much of it is just accepting, right? Accepting as I am today. It doesn't mean someday I won't be an ironer. Maybe I will be. I don't know. I doubt it. Maybe I'll be a dry cleaner kind of person. I doubt it though. And maybe I'll wear heels again. That will never happen. So anyway, all right. Lori, to you.
Oh, goodness. I came up too quick on the list there. I thought Jim was ahead of me.
I don't know where he went. I don't see him.
Oh, he said no.
Okay.
I don't even know that I'm real clear on what I want to say, but there's just so much I'm learning in this, and believe me, I'm behind on the homework, so I had no confusion this week because I'm a couple weeks back. It's one pro to being behind, but I'm just learning so much, but also struggling with the knowledge, I guess, of how I behave and how I would like to be different, but how hard it is to change. And being that 9 who doesn't want to disrupt anything, and I just go into being passive and quiet and not speak up. But I'm realizing I never really thought much about having anger. And in some of the readings lately and in one of the Ennea thoughts this week, it discussed anger. And I suppress it so much and cover it up so much that I don't see it as anger, but I think maybe it is. And it really is more at me than anyone else. I'm just frustrated with what frustrated. I don't really have regrets. I'm just frustrated with how hard it is to change. I guess that I'll leave it at that. Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you, Lori.
And I love that Rose poem also. I posted it on the chat and in WhatsApp for everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, because I will say, and I think almost more than anyone, I could be wrong, but I think this is true, that the 9s, right? Because there's the feeling or something that they don't matter, they will not step up unless there's something that forces them to, often this will happen, it forces them to step up. And then there's just this little bit of resentment, just this little bit of, why aren't people, why doesn't somebody ask me or something? There's some little something there. And what happens is that builds up, right? And that's why I think especially when we talk about the resentments, on the step 4, instead of being 18,000, which would happen there, it's like, what is the pattern that does happen with the 9? Because the 9 absolutely has this pattern of not speaking up, not speaking up, not speaking up, not speaking up. And it is a pattern that happens, right? And then it says, okay, what am I costing myself? This is why it's such a good thing to do a racket sheet, not on like every single one of those, but if there is a pattern of that happening, here's the situation that happens. Here is me not speaking up, even though I do have an opinion. And then what is the cost and what is the benefit? What is the ego benefit of that, right? Because if you think about it, if your main desire is to have peace, right? You don't want any conflict at all, but at some point in time, it's worthy of a conflict. Whereas the 8s are just the opposite, right? We're conflict when there's no need for conflict, right? So it's like, and I think what happens there is it's just so often that it's like, okay, what are we looking at here? And this is one of the reasons I want to say, most of the books that are 12-step and Enneagram, somewhere around step 5, they fall apart. They just fall apart. They focus on other things. They're not on the steps anymore. They're not talking Enneagram types anymore. And what you are feeling right now is why? Because we feel adrift. We've done all this work. We've made it to 7. I've got this thing. Now I'm just kind of in pause, waiting to see, are there changes happening? They will happen, but it's the rose. we're just like, we're at that little thing where we're just that little blossom. We're just that little blossom, and it will open at some point. But we've got, basically, that's when we're invoking that power. And it isn't sunshine, rain, and flowers. And it's not that. It's living our life and watching for these things and seeing these things. And now what we're going to do, just in step 8, we're going to say, okay, now let's pick one of these things and take a look. Do I owe an amends for this? And I think you're going to be surprised at how few you do owe. I do. I think you will, because I mean, the 8s don't usually apologize as much as other people do. And by the way, I think earlier, Shirley, you said something about I say thank you all day. I don't think thank you is ever a bad thing. Thank you is a good thing. It's the I'm sorry that is the rough one, right? So yeah, I mean, I have a cousin that if I ever say, she'll have something bad happen in her life, I'll say, I'm sorry. And she'll say, why? You didn't do anything. Okay, I guess. So what am I supposed to say? I feel compassion for you? Whatever. Okay, fine. But she's also one, whenever I say thank you, you don't need to tell me thank you. Okay. Obviously, love being around her. Okay, anyway, thank you, Lori, for that. Appreciate
I
it.
just wanted to add, Cher, the fact is that I just really feel I'm not ready. I'm not ready to unfold that conflict.
Yes, exactly. And that's what the
I
rose is
can't
about.
do it.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
can't do it.
And
And
you're not supposed to push it. You're just supposed to relax in it. Right. And it's almost, even though this feels weird, this is almost a break from what we were doing. And now we're looking at something else.
Yeah.
When we go through the 12 steps, we don't look at it as now I'm on a different path, because we're letting the 7 ruminate. We're letting the 7 grow and change. We're letting that happen. We're on a different, we moved over, right? We're on the road next door now. And that's what we're doing on 8 and 9. So I know everything else has been building to 6 and 7. 6 and 7 is where the juice is. That's where the change is happening, but it takes time.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I introduced the rose, is because it is going to take time to unfold. We don't want to push it. Now let's just see, do we owe amends for anything? Right? We're on the next street. We're looking at 8 and 9, right? Now, when we get to 10, 11, and 12, we'll bring everything together. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I do think the discomfort from this week, some of it is because my assignment was unclear, and some of it, my assignment was unclear because I was unclear. But also, I think some of it is because it's like, wait, this isn't a continuation. It is not. We're now on a different street. We're going to let 6 and 7 boil. It's going to bubble. It's going to just cook a little bit. And we know that that's going to have to happen, because we don't have practice in invoking our greater power. We don't have practice in saying, on this one little thing, can you help me with this? And that doesn't happen overnight. That takes weeks, months, years sometimes, right? And that's fine. So that's going to continue. Okay, I hope that helps.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, a couple more things, if you don't mind.
worries. Go ahead.
Regarding the I'm sorry, which I say all the time. Back to when I was 14 years old, which was 51 years ago, I had a boyfriend, and I said sorry so much, he got tired of hearing it, and he told me, say turtles instead. And that always sticks in my mind. But anyway, and the other thing I wanted to share is for everyone to know the work that goes on behind the scenes to create this content and these steps and this work by Cher, Joy, and a pool of team members. I mean, I watch it all the time because I'm part of it. I'm helping maybe post it or whatever, but that work is incredible. And we may had a little hiccup this week, but just know everyone is working their behinds off trying to produce this for everybody. And every word is carefully thought out. And thank you to Cher, Joy, and I can't even begin to list the team, but anyway, love you all.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Lori.
Thanks for recovering with us.